Welcome to the Jobs and Work podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Kendra Jason. I'm a sociologist and workplace equity consultant, and I will bring guests onto the show who reflect the diversity of the American workforce. On this podcast, I challenge you to think about work. Why? Because in America, we spend more time at our jobs than anywhere else. But how often do we really talk about work? And I mean all types of work: women's work, essential work, retirement, being your own boss, how to handle your boss, and so much more. Please subscribe and share the Jobs and Work with Work for Change podcast. You can learn more about my consultancy that supports this podcast at work4changellc.com. Hello and welcome to episode 46 of the Jobs and Work with Work for Change podcast. I'm your host, Kendra Jason, and today, special guest, Kris Macomber, founder of Clairemediastories. Welcome to the show, Kris.
Thank you for having me on, Kendra. This is exciting.
Now, I know some of our regular viewers are like, what's going on? Why is Kris getting the whole introduction? We're doing something a little bit different today. So instead of Kris being my co-host, as you know, she is my co-host and right hand in so many things in Work for Change. Today, we're actually featuring Kris as a small business owner. And I really wanted to give everyone an opportunity to catch up with Kris on some really exciting transitions that she's doing in her own work life. So today we decided to feature her as a special guest so that we can learn more about what is going on with Kris Macomber. All right. So as you know, Kris Macomber is the Vice President of Digital Storytelling and our lead equity consultant at Work for Change. She has been that since January of 2021 when we were established. Okay. Also, Kris, for many years, was a full-time employee in the academy. And so now Kris is ready to open up her venture and make public her own small business, which is called Clairemedia. All right. So the way I would like to start this, Kris, is first, if you could let I want them to know about Clairemedia. I'm so excited about that. So can you let our viewers and our listeners know what Clairemedia is and what services you provide?
Sure. Thank you, Kendra, for having me on. It's exciting to be here in this capacity on this side of it and not having to have questions ready, but just be ready to talk. So Clairemedia is a video storytelling agency. What we specialize in is two different sort of subsets, making video storytelling for organizations. I specialize in small business owners. I'm captivated by people who started their own business and want to help tell their story, promote the work they do, why they do it, how they do it, who they do it with. The other side of it is what I call personal stories, which are, think about a documentarian for a family, somebody who wants to capture a family story that they don't want to lose over time. And that can be a friendship story, it can be an engagement story, it can be a spiritual story, it can be something about a really special relationship that you have, it can be a pet story, anything that people really want to document. And kind of at the core of it is what I really, really want to do is honor the human experience, whether that's a professional experience or a more like personal, intimate experience.
Okay, so people who have been following Work for Change says, okay, Kris, well, that's what you do for Work for Change. So here's the question. Is it what you do for Work for Change? And if it's not, how is it different?
Yeah, it's different because with Work for Change, most of our video work, our digital storytelling is designed for our clients to be in-house. It's internal. It's an educational tool for them to onboard new members about equity work, to kind of capture and really formalize the equity work we do with them and to create a record of it. So it'll sort of stand the test of time institutionally. That's different because that's inward. The videos that I make at Clairemedia are more forward-facing videos to really like take a story and amplify it. They're forward-facing, public-facing rather than internal. Now with Work for Change, people can and clients can use those on their websites and have it forward-facing, but we don't make them with the intent of it being like promoting the organization. It's more of an educational internal tool for them.
Yeah, and to make it even really simple for some folks, Work for Change does not do videos on pets, on family reunions, on friendship stories,
No, no,
on personal
no.
stories. And so, just again, just for clarity, so Claire Media is not a part of Work for Change. This is Kris Macomber's own independent small business. I'm so excited and proud of her for this venture. And Kris does video work for Work for Change within the capacity of our clients and the equity work that we do for our clients and workplaces. But this is an independent venture. So, since it's an independent venture, how did you get to
Mm,
starting your own, business with
yeah.
Claire Media?
You know, I would say that it was a sort of windy road. And I think most interesting stories do have a lot of twists and turns. I didn't really get into video or documentary work until I was well into my career as a sociologist. It was always sort of like a side interest of mine. I took a documentary filmmaking class for a week, learned some skills, and was like, yeah, like I want to incorporate this into my work as a social scientist.
Yeah.
I think about data as visual, right? So I just started kind of played with that a little bit, and I designed a class called Visual Sociology, where I had students do these film projects and photography projects where they looked at photography as data. So I was sort of like getting there, and then when I started to collaborate with Kendra, she said, you do this video work. Is there a way that you could integrate that into Work for Change? And I was like, let me think on that for a minute. And I was like, actually, yeah, like we can tell change stories. And you were like, well, like, tell me more. And I was like,
Yeah.
we work with our clients and we start here and we work for 6 months or 12 months. And there's a change story that's unfolding there and we can help tell that. And you were like, yeah, I think that sounds really good. So then from there, I started learning and hearing feedback that I was pretty good at telling digital stories, that I was good at taking these big complex issues and breaking them down into a small, succinct, sort of compelling story. And I realized how energized I get when I'm doing that work.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel like work. The hours fly by when I get to tell a story. And, I think of myself more as like a conduit, like there's stories there. I'm just kind of a vehicle to help tell it. And I love that feeling, So it just sort of happened over time where I said, maybe there's something more here. And Kendra and I were sitting having a conversation last year at Work for Change, and she planted the seed. She said, I see Macomber Media someday. And I had this moment where it was almost like almost physically stepped back and was like, it just like hit me. And I had never contemplated doing something like that. And I said, well, it wouldn't be Macomber Media. It would be Claire Media, after my grandmother. Claire is her name, and it's also my middle name. And it was just like, I hadn't thought about it. But when you said that, I just went, no, it would be Claire Media. And then that was about a year ago. And here we are a year later. And piece by piece, I started thinking about how I could carve out my own business. So here we are.
So what has it been like? Do you have any clients now?
Mhm.
And like, what is that process for you? Like,
Yeah, right now it has been word of mouth and referrals. So I have 2 organizational clients. So I'm helping tell their organizational stories. And basically what that is, I sit down and I do about a 2-hour interview with them. And I ask them a series of questions about the work they do, why they do it, how they do it, right? All of those things. And then from that 2-hour interview, I then will piece out and make a series, what I call a video series, to tell different short stories. They, range from like 40 seconds to 2 minutes. They can be longer, but they're really about, one might be about process. Like, what is it like to work with you? So that'll be its own short story. The audience today, our audience, has a really short attention span. I know we talk about that a lot. And we're also a visual culture, we're a video culture, we're a click and watch culture. So I really feel like, it's a good time to be capitalizing on that and working with organizations who they can't see how it all fits together, but I can see how it all fits together, right? Like they don't know how to ask those questions of themselves. So having someone come in and kind of ask those questions and then putting it all together and then breaking it down into short stories, I think is really fascinating work.
Yeah. And so again, just for clarity, so when Kris under Claire Media does have organizational level clients and small business owners and managers and things as clients. With Work for Change, it's those clients who are undergoing equity training, and the video work is a part of their equity training. So again, like Kris has just found this awesome niche that she has. And the thing that's so important is that we live not just in a digital era right now, but because of social media and digital media and short attention spans, it is so important for you all, if you have a story, if you have a business, if you have a product, if you have a service, if you have if you're a thought leader, whatever it is, to capture videos. And Kris does it in a really professional way. I just whenever I see a finished product from Kris, I'm just like, wow, like she's just amazing in it. So one thing I wanted to talk about is that many of our followers and people who have known you for as long as I have, for 20 years or a little bit less, know you as a full-time professor. So what is Kris Macomber doing now when it comes to being that full-time professor, and how are you balancing that with Work for Change and Claire Media and the other things?
Yeah, I didn't think 2 jobs was enough, so I started a third. And I say that jokingly because I don't feel, each of them are important to me and it's work that I find rewarding. But yeah, I was a full-time professor as a sociologist for many years, and always thought for a while that was it. That was like the sort of destination. And then, we go through different seasons in life. And when Kendra and I, during COVID, started Work for Change, when she founded Work for Change and brought me on board, I was like, yeah, I really like this space. Yeah. I really enjoy doing equity work. And it's, to me, it's applied sociology. It's doing public sociology. And I really enjoy that. And then I started shifting my professional identity and starting seeing myself primarily as an educator, an equity educator.
Yeah, you did.
Which does fall under both, being a professor, and because that's why I do what I do, is to teach about social justice and social change. So it really dovetails really well together. I find them compatible. So Claire Media came along, and, being a business owner is distinct from doing digital storytelling, right? Because I do digital storytelling for Work for Change, but that's not the same thing as like starting your own business, as you know very well, Kendra. So when I decided that I was going to do that, the reason that I decided to take this step and get my LLC, which I got in the fall of 2021, was that I liked being able to be creative, and I wanted to do that more. I wanted to have control over my schedule, control over my time, do the work that I want to do and not do the work that I don't want to do.
Right.
And, I've been grinding for a long time. I've been working since I was 15. So I've probably 13 actually. So I've never, I always felt like, I just felt like it was time to start doing it more on my own terms and really carving out my own space and feeling empowered to do work that I know I'm pretty good at. And feeling like I can help people. Like, I really feel like I can help take someone's story and amplify it and then honor it, and just kind of like settling into that.
Yeah, you said something really interesting, because I've been working since I was 16 to like a very young age, always worked, like never had, like I don't really think I had uninterrupted work, if that makes sense. I mean, reasonably, right? And work has always felt the same, especially for me, where like more recently I've been in the academy for let's see, 20 years starting with a graduate student, so even as a graduate student, working as a research assistant and working as a teaching assistant, and then having my own class as a lecturer, and then being a researcher. All those things feel really good as I'm getting promoted and coming into my own in that realm, but it still feels the same. It's the same kind of work. It's the same environment. It's the same relationships. It's the same grind. When I started Work for Change, it felt really different. it felt really different, and it was an exciting different, and it was like, it wasn't a difference. And Kris and I, we talked about this all the time, especially last year on our podcast, that it was work, but it didn't feel like work. Like
Yep.
Kris and I would wake up, we would see each other before we would see our kids in the morning. We would have our work for change meeting the hour before our kids woke up, and we did that for like 5 days a week for 6 months to get work for change going. But we loved it. And we did it every day. And then the work that came after that, which was like building clientele and figuring out what work for change was going to be and going to look like. And it still feels different today. We pull from a lot of the elements. Like I love, like Kris, you were saying, you took your video training class years ago, and then you incorporated that in your teaching, developing a course around it. Then you did work for change, and now you're on, independently doing the work. And that's similar to my situation, and I think so many other people's situation. And this is something we used to talk about all the time in the Starting Your Own Business workshop, is that when many people start their own business, they're pulling so many skills and knowledge base and relationships from their 9 to 5, I like to call it, full-time job or other credential job, into this new space.
Yep.
Often people want to separate it and say, no, like I want to compartmentalize what I do for the government, or what I do for the corporation, or what I do for the nonprofit. And then my own business is something totally different. And what happens when they do that is it leads to very, very slow progress. Because on this side, you're trying to figure things out from scratch and reinvent the wheel, when in actuality, you have all the resources and materials over here. You just got to give yourself permission to use those things. And so I hear your story and so many others too.
Oh, yeah. I mean, for me, when I'm putting together a story, it's like doing qualitative research, which is my training as a sociologist. So it's like everything culminates in that, all my skills in terms of education, being an educator, really focusing in on social change stories. If somebody wants to tell something about change, and really seeing it as data, and I know that for people who don't do video storytelling from the vantage point, I'm always like, how do they do it if they're not researchers? Because to me, it's so like similar to the process of collecting data, putting together this sort of analytic story. But yeah, I definitely feel like the reason I do what I do, or how I do it. A lot of people are digital storytellers. Not many are sociologists, have PhDs in qualitative research, and are actually, using that expertise in it. So I feel like it is a unique skill set.
Yeah, so you almost stole my next question. So one thing Kris and I were just talking actually before we start recording this podcast is, there's a lot of digital storytelling that you see out there. People advertising that they do digital storytelling. And a lot of people don't know what that means, and some people do, and then it means different things to different people. And so I wanted to ask you, and again, to provide clarity for those who are listening or watching, what is it like working with you? You say you're a sociologist, but like, what does that mean to someone who wants to do a pet story, for example? So what is it like working with you, and how do you use that unique skill set in order to deliver the awesome final product that you do?
I think part of the most important part of the process is the questions I ask people. Like the questions, like when I go into an interview with a client, I am fascinated by everyday people. My fascination and interest in being just drawn into everyday people really informs the way that I approach the storytelling process. So I give my clients a script. I will give them questions, and I'll say, usually it's 8 or 9 questions, and that draws out the meaningful experience that they want to share.
Yeah.
So, and that comes from, my training as a researcher and doing interview research with people. So knowing how to ask questions and offering a sample script. I don't tell people what to say, but I'll say, for example, right? Because I can see how the story will fit in my mind. I think in stories. I've always done that. And that's something else I realize in life, is not everybody thinks in stories. Like when I first met Kendra, and one of her really good friends, who she's been like friends with forever, I was like, I want to know their friendship story. Like,
Yeah.
I want to know how they got here from all of those years. Like, I think in stories.
Yeah.
And I want to help like break it down. And I'm interested in those like small moments moments that feel small, and helping really take a step back and see how those small moments are actually really big.
Yeah.
And that's my approach when I do interviews with clients, is to give them about 8 or 9 questions that helps draw out their experience. So if it's a pet story, or if it's a friendship story, it'll start, with, so tell me about this pet, what is it about your relationship with your dog that you feel is special? And then they'll say, oh, I was, really depressed, and this pet saved my life. And then
Yeah.
we'll go deeper. We just do a
Right.
deep dive into whatever the relationship is with work. If you're a business owner, there's a relationship there.
Yeah.
It's really just about examining relationships and really honoring those.
So what have you found to be most surprising in this journey that
Mhm.
you've had over the last, we can time it, this last couple of years? What have you found most surprising about your journey and your process?
I think one of the things is how comfortable people are talking about things they're proud about. Because
Yeah.
most people, that's the one difference with Work for Change, is sometimes the clients who are on video are happy to participate. They want to support the project, but there's apprehension to be like videoed, and you're on microphone and on camera, and there's a big light in your face, and there's like nervousness that comes with that. And
Yeah.
not that people don't get nervous on camera, because it is sort of an unnatural environment in some ways. But when people have something that they're proud of that they want to tell, I feel like that experience it's not necessarily surprising, but I enjoy it in an unexpected way. Like seeing people really come to life as they talk about the work they do, why
Yeah.
they do it, what gets them up in the morning.
Yeah.
Things like that. Yeah.
What would you say you learned about yourself transitioning into this type of work, or going on this type of work and life journey?
Oh, wow. I've learned a lot of nuggets of wisdom from the Work for Change podcast. Honestly, the small business owners that you have brought on, like I have all of these like mantras, like, you do not need to be perfect to be great, right?
Right.
That's
Right.
one, and just sort of giving myself grace in the process. And I would say the other thing that I've learned that we've talked about sometimes is like, I know what I'm good at. I know what my strengths are. And I know what my weaknesses are. I know things that I don't excel at.
Yeah.
I'm a sort of really big analytic thinker. I'm kind of circular, right? And
Yeah.
Kendra and I have talked about that. She's a very linear thinker, and it takes me a while to kind of get there, because for me, it's like my brain just works that way.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, but that's probably that skill set, which may be a challenge or a weakness in some ways, is probably why I'm good at storytelling, right?
Yeah.
So like just knowing what I'm good at, and knowing what I'm not good at, and just being okay with that,
Yeah.
and saying, okay, like this is my strengths, this is my skill set, and and giving myself grace and not being too hard on myself. And I do push myself really hard. I have high expectations,
Yeah.
for my clients' products, right? That their stories are great, and that's something that I think I should have. I think we all should want our clients to be happy. So
Yeah.
I'm
It
okay.
is. One thing, it is so awesome working with you, and it's so Kris has created digital stories for me. She's working on one now, and I'm just kind of laughing because I laughed and like melted and everything else in the whole process. It's really something to be recorded, to be interviewed and recorded, knowing that it's going to go out into the world. But she has this really, really awesome way of talking me through the process and letting me know, okay, like you can make mistakes, that's what I'm here for. And it also makes me, I think about when we first started Work for Change, and um, we had this idea to do digital storytelling within equity training, which
Mhm.
like, I don't know anybody else who does this,
Mm.
right? And so I remember when Kris would pitch, the digital storytelling to the clients, it's like after she did her spiel, they were like, I want that,
Mhm.
right? But what was so interesting, what I'm thinking about is when we first introduced digital storytelling into our equity training process, we wanted to keep it a secret.
Yeah.
Remember, we were like, oh, we don't want to advertise that we do this because we don't want somebody else to do it. This is where we wanted to have like, this is a competitive edge on someone else, but now we're like loud and proud with it because we understand that no one else can do it like Kris does,
Yeah.
or as Work for Change does as an equity, as a part of our equity training and equity process. And so I just think it's so interesting, really seeing our development and my development as a business owner, thinking like, oh, I don't want to let, we don't want to let other people know, other people who do digital stories or whatever know that we do this. But now it's like silly because they can do it. You know what? Y'all can do it all day.
Yep.
Because it's not, and what you do is probably great because that's in your own lane. But when you own it and you have the eye and the perspective, that Kris has and bringing these stories and pulling what we want to pull out for the clients of Work for Change, for example, there's no competition.
No,
there's no competition. There's nothing to be worried about or anxious about or schematic for. Like, we're not on social media seeing who else is doing what, because we are so comfortable in our lane. And the product that Kris delivers for Work for Change and as an independent business owner with Clairemediastories is just outstanding on its own. So we don't even worry about that. Would you agree?
Yeah, absolutely. Right. Because I think who you are becomes how you do your work, and the way we think about projects, the questions we ask, how we ask them, like I have I think a knack for making people feel comfortable.
Yeah.
And so someone who is like nervous about talking and then in a few minutes they're laughing, and not everyone can do that, and I think making someone feel comfortable is really important to get those real honest, authentic moments. Like someone's not going to be honest and authentic if they feel scared or they don't trust you.
Yeah.
I definitely feel like, I kind of dig into that part of myself and try to make people feel really comfortable. And people have, shared lots of things on camera with me that they didn't think they would. They would say, I didn't think I was going to talk about that, but I did. So
let me ask you one more question before I let you go. And of course, that is, what advice would you give to someone who was in a similar situation as you, working full time, or thinking about doing a creative venture when they're in more of a structured environment and they're just a bit hesitant about taking that leap into the next step?
Yeah, I would say you'll know when it's time to make a change when you feel the energy you get from your other creative project, to trust that. I would say to trust the way you feel. I think our bodies tell us a lot. I mean, I'm not going to get too like woo-woo here, but I believe that we need to listen to our bodies. Like if we feel stressed and strained and tired from certain kinds of work and energized and rewarded from other kinds of work, that's a sign. Like that's good. That'll drive you. So to really just pay attention to how you feel. The other thing is, it is a little bit of a leap of faith, right? When you start your own business. So I waited for a time to felt like financially, like I could do that, and do it with freedom and not fear. Do it with, not being like worried, like every month, how am I going to make it all work?
Yeah.
So, timing, I think, is really important too. And just, knowing when it's time to make that change, where not making the change is scarier than making it. That's how I got to that point where I was like, not ever making that change and not trying this and seeing what happens.
Yeah.
I would regret that more than staying safe. Absolutely.
Awesome. So since we have listeners as well as watchers, could you let us know your email, your contact information? We'll also add it at the bottom of the YouTube link and the description on your podcast platform, so you can contact Kris as well.
Thank you for asking that, Kendra. Yeah, I'm in the process of getting a website, so I don't have that yet, but I do have my email. It's Clairemediastories. It's Claire, Claire, media, Media stories, plural stories, at gmail.com. And yeah, I'll be getting a website up and running soon, and we'll officially publicly launch hopefully early fall.
Yeah, awesome. So I'm really, really, really thankful. One thing that I'll say just to wrap up, one thing that I learned from watching Kris in this process is trusting yourself to do it in your own time. Because as she said, like, I was like, oh man, you should do this, you should do this. Or, it wasn't, I just encouraged her, but it was all there. And she listened and she was like, good idea. I'll think about that. I'll do it. And I'll do it in my own time. We were even laughing because I asked her a few months ago to come onto the podcast and talk about Clairemedia. And she said, no, not yet. And then when I asked her most recently, she was like, yeah, let's do it. And so, I think that's really important, to trust your gut and to move on your own timeline, no matter what it looks like. And I really love Kris's advice to trust yourself, to trust your body. Your body is telling you a story. You need to listen to it, right? So I'm really appreciative for that. And so thank you, Kris, for stepping, away from Work for Change, that Work for Change hat, and wearing your Clairemedia hat so people can get reintroduced to you as a small business.
Thank you for this opportunity. This was really fun. I appreciate it.
Awesome. So for everyone else, our listeners and viewers, thank you for tuning in today. Please continue to like, subscribe, and share. We're on their social media platforms: LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, also on Spotify, Amazon, and Google audio for our listeners. So please just continue to like, subscribe, and share so we can work to make the world of work better. Have a great day, everyone.